All right, welcome to the Spirit of Business. My name is Reese Roberts, and I want to make sure that you guys understand why we're here. Today, we're talking about contracts, and we're not really going to delay too much because I don't want to stay and keep you guys for too long because this topic can get a little involved. So, we're talking about contracts today on the Spirit of Business. And first of all, I want you to know you can go to patreon.com/learn admin law for mentorship subscriptions if you feel that you want to know how to do these things and you need someone to teach you more hands-on learning. We do have options available for learners who are looking to learn how to administrate a private administration of governance and basically maintain a certain level of freedom using administrative law and other forms of law. So, talking about contracts today, we're going to talk about analyzing and perfecting your contracts. But before we really dig into the contract itself, I would like to talk briefly about what a contract is and some forms of contracts that you don't have any choice whatsoever whether or not you enter into this agreement because you have already done it and it's irreversible. You have an irrevocable set of contracts with the planet. And because the planet is a sentient being, this is something that you need to be aware of because the planet is conscious and so are you. And that consciousness is what links you to the power of the planet, the power of nature, the power of universal law, and natural law. So these are um, things that you need to understand before you start studying private governance because you are being governed by a higher power. Okay. You are being governed by a higher power, whether you like that or not, whether you know it or not, whether you want it or not. This is the case. It's nothing you can do about it. And so we're going to talk about that. Okay. So starting off, when we are all born, we receive a body. Okay. This body is an inheritance of the earth. Okay. Because your body is of the earth. So when anybody says that you have inherited the earth, that's what they mean. To inherit the earth means that someone gave you access to a body. Usually your mother gave you access to your body because the ultimate universal mother, the planet, gave you your body. So the feminine principle is what births and creates this connection of consciousness. And our womb, the portal of life, is what allows those things to become enabled whenever it is sparked by the male principle of electric energy. Okay, and that's what happens when a sperm cell basically incorporates itself into an egg cell. That sperm cell creates a spark of energy that essentially sets off a chain reaction of events that are chemical. Okay, chemical blending actually occurs, and that's why you have your mother's DNA and your father's. So that out the way, coming into your body and coming into this inheritance means that you must govern yourself a certain way. And these concepts are things that you guys are already familiar with in the legal space, however, or in the space of law and order. Okay, so these things they have to connect because at some point you have to realize that this is how you should be creating your contracts in the physical form, because this is what you are subject to in the spiritual, supernatural, esoteric type of energetic way. You're subject to these laws. So when you receive this body, you come into your inheritance, and now you have to govern a certain way. This is how trust law works. If you are to benefit from the trust, then you must be able to govern yourself accordingly, so that you do not end up having you don't end up having repercussions, or you don't end up having things that are adverse reactions, or you basically losing out on the birthright. Okay, because the birthright comes to you by way of your adherence to the natural laws that you're subject to. All right, so let's just say, for example, you enter your body. Now you're a baby, and you have no idea about this contract. You have absolutely no idea. It's fine because you're still being governed and your natural capacity for existing on the planet is what allows you to sustain yourself. And this is really true throughout your whole life. But I'm giving you the example of the baby because hopefully it'll make you understand your relationship to the planet, because to the mother planet you're always going to be a baby and you're always going to be taken care of like a baby. Just like a baby. So in the physical world, the baby cries, the baby has all of these needs, and the baby is fully capable of communicating those needs to its mother in order to get those things taken care of. And I'm sure you know, if you're a parent, that when your child was a baby, you could tell what your child needed based on what they were doing, or based on how they were acting, or just little signs that they would give you. And so you knew what your child needed. This is the same way that things work on our humanity. Okay, this is what the planet is doing, basically, with humanity, reading our energy and understanding what we need in order for us to continue to sustain ourselves. So universal systems that come into play when you are an infant, whether you're a physical infant or a spiritual infant, or a mental infant. This is what the contract says, is that when you come into your body, you're being governed by vibration. So let's just say, for example, you are putting out a certain vibration into the universe. Let's just say you're a very angry person, for example, and now we're graduating into a more mature part of life, physical life. You're becoming a mature person now, or you're becoming a young adult. And let's just say you haven't learned emotional intelligence yet, just yet. So now you are, how do I say this? You are emitting a certain amount of energy. You're giving off energy, and the universe says that whatever energy you give off, you get back. Okay, and this may or may not be something good for you, because well, in its infancy, or in your lack of understanding why the universe does that to you, then you may not think it's a positive thing. But when you do understand what the universe is doing, why you're receiving the same energy that you give out, it's because that is a self-sustainable way for the planet to keep all of us in order. Because if I am angry, let's just say I strike somebody, and then they turn around and they strike me back. Over time, the more I mature and the more I become emotionally intelligent, at some point I'm going to realize this is a contract. This is a self executing contract to have energy that I can give out that automatically comes back to me the same way. This is an agreement so that you'll elevate your energy, because if you are getting tired of receiving back negative, slow, lackadaisical, idle, angry, jealous, futile energy, then these are the types of things that you're going to realize at some point in your life. I have to elevate. I can't continue to give off this vibration if I don't want to keep getting it back. And so when humanity realizes that, then we start to elevate our vibrations, because we are realizing these things by law are coming back to us. Every time I say or speak or do or enter any type of engagement into this reality that I live in, that's going to come back to me. Okay? It's going to determine how I'm able to move, what I'm able to acquire, how I'm feeling. It's going to say some things to me. It's going to do some things to me when I'm engaging with my environment. So another thing the universe will do for you by law, by order, is allow you to look at those interpretations, and or look at those things to interpret them. Okay, so in our interaction with the universe, we have mirrors that are basically forms of feedback that we get. So whenever I have energy that I'm issuing out into the universe, I'm getting it back as a mirror. Okay, that is a mirror. So I'm able to read that to see, am I okay with the energy that I'm giving out? Because if not, I would see that. I would see it in the mirror, or I would feel it in the mirror. Because if I'm giving out angry energy and then somebody gives it back to me, I'm going to feel that same anger. And maybe it'll throw me into a loop where I'm continuously circling around in anger until one day I eventually elevate out of that loop, and then I'm circulating around in maybe hope, or I might elevate from there and then I'm circulating around maybe action. And then I might circulate from there and then, or excuse me, elevate from there. And then I'm circulating around in knowledge and purity, pure thoughts. So these things are happening to us by way of contractual agreement. When you get into your body, other things apply. You must breathe in order to live. You must take care of your body in order to have it function. Okay. It has to, in order for your body to function properly, you must take care of it, because your body's not going to do whatever you have not trained it to do. The same thing with your mind. You are a mental creation. Everything that you create comes from your mind. So your mental conditioning is another, um, um, it's another, how do I say, the fact that we are mental creators, it's a part of the contract. If you don't want to participate in creating your reality, or elevating your thoughts, or becoming emotionally intelligent so that you can elevate your thoughts, then you will not be participating. You will not be participating in your birthright as a part of a conscious humanity, because that's just the contract. Everything that you create is mental. So if you don't create anything because you're not mental, then that's just going to cause your death. It's going to cause your imminent death, not necessarily in a physical way. Because if you don't think your way through life, you don't necessarily just fall over and die from a lack of thought, but your energy dies. It will not go any further beyond your reach, beyond your physical reach. And so if you're content with dying off a energetic death, or dying without a legacy, which is an energetic death, then that's on you. But okay, the wages of sin is death, nonetheless. Then, and sin, when I'm talking about sin, I'm talking about going against nature. If you're going against what nature has designed you to do, it's going to cause your death, imminent death. And I'm telling you that irrefutably, unequivocally, it is going to result in death of some kind. All right. And so, even if, and I want you to know that this is okay, because death is a part of nature. Death is a part of the recycling of life. Death is a part of life itself. It's just on the opposite end of the spectrum. Okay. So, whatever life is, death is just simply the opposite of it, but still the same power nonetheless. Okay. So the fact that we are all vibratory beings and that we're in a virtual reality, that is a natural law. Okay. When I say we're in a virtual reality, what I mean is that we are all vibratory beings. Everything in our existence vibrates. Everything vibrates. Everything vibrates, which means nothing is solid. Nothing is ever moving still, even though it looks like it's moving still. The molecules in all of our contraptions and all of these, things that we've created across the globe, all these things are vibrating. We're vibrating, the matter vibrates, and it's not solid. And then also our consciousness is uploaded into our bodies. So let's just talk about what happens when you are creating additional agreements on top of the ones that you are subject to without any decision or free will. Because I need you to know this: your free will is limited to the things that you are not subject to. Okay, your free will to will anything is only subject, or excuse me, your free will only applies to the things that you are not subject to. And so the simple way to say that is where the old saying goes, I'm going to um I'm going to basically control what I can, and I'm going to forget about anything else. I'm going to just worry about whatever I can control. Everything else is out of my control. I don't care. I forget what the phrase is, but that's the way it goes. And this is really how the universe works. The universe has a certain amount of duties, a certain amount of responsibilities, okay, that it takes on for humanity, so that we don't need to worry about the governance of the thing. Okay. So it does us a favor, provides a service for us, and it governs on these things. The fact that we have a virtual reality that is responsive to our brain, okay, that is compatible with the functions, the systems, the systems that function in our body. These are things that are designed by nature. We are subject to it and we have no choice. You do not have a choice in the matter when it comes to your bodily functions. When it comes to the fact that your brain is connected to your heart, which is connected to your gut, which is connected all as a system to the universe at large magnetically. You can't change the fact that you are an electromagnetic being, and that when you think thoughts, it trains your subconscious mind to create your reality around those thoughts. So these are operating system protocols. Okay, this is what the planet does to operate all the machines that exist on its surface. We are the machines. Everything in our body is made of some sort of complex machinery, from your vision to your skin to your breath, your joints, your bones, your heart. Everything that we're operating on, it's based on an operating system that designs this network of communication, where your mind communicates with, or I should say, your mind creates these frequencies. Okay, your heart creates these frequencies, and they communicate. Yeah, they allow communication to the universe at large. These are just vibrations that are coming off of you, and they attract to you the thing that is on that level of vibration. So these are contracts. Okay, and every time you enter into a contract by engaging with the universe, then the universe responds to perform on its duty to return that back to you. And this is where exchange and commerce comes in. This is where value, and security and interest and all that stuff comes into play. It is because the power of my agreement to say that I'm going to interact and engage with my universal systems at large, the power of me to think and make decisions, and for me to exchange. These are the things that determine whether or not I am living or not. Okay, this is what living means, is that I'm able to agree. So when I enter into an agreement, these are the things that I need to consider as I'm writing, analyzing, perfecting, and doing these things on my contract. And the main thing that you want to do when you analyze a contract is you want to look and see um, what is relevant. Okay, you want to see what is relevant and what are you agreeing to? What are you agreeing to? What are you not agreeing to? Because you can apply across the board agreements and disagreements. And so it becomes very important. It becomes imperative for you to be able to tell what you want to agree to and what you do not want to agree to. Because in our world, the contracts that we are subject to by the universe are beneficiary by nature. But the contracts in the world that we are being called to agree to, they're not all peachy cream. They're not all okay. So it falls on us. Okay, the onus falls on us to be able to say, because this is not a universal concept, I have to act as a judge so that I can look at what this contract says, meaning I'm looking at the terms and conditions, and I'm going to determine whether or not, based on my moral code, based on my interpretation of this document, do I agree or do I not agree? Where am I going to place those agreements? Is it going to be a full agreement or partial? Which parts of it do I agree to? What part, like, let's just say, for example, is something that I don't agree to unless I can add this, that, and the other. These are decisions that have to be made by the person who is consciously taking on the information. So, in a contract, all the terms and conditions are possibly going to look out for your interest, but this is the reason why contracts should be bilateral. Most of the adhesion contracts that we enter into in our private lifestyle, they are unilateral, which is nearly unconscionable. To have a bilateral, or excuse me, to have a unilateral contract, to me is that's unconscionable. I would not consider anything unilateral to even be a contract, because, like I said earlier, the universal concept of contracting with the universe involves exchange. It involves you giving off something and getting it back. Okay, at a greater amount, and this is where interest comes from. It's a biblical concept or a spiritual concept from the universe, is that when you give me something like a seed or a principle, then I'm going to return that back to you in the form of interest. Okay, this is why we don't give up our security interest. We have to go and read our contracts to figure out where is the exchange happening, where is the value being taken from me as a seed, and then basically processed in the universe before it comes back to me. And this is how banking works. This is how accounting works. Securitization. This is how these things work. You give off a principal amount, it gets deposited in the bank, it gets securitized, the interest gains and accrues, and then it's supposed to come back to you. But see, the thing that we're suffering from is that it's not coming back to us. Our position as the beneficial owner of the interest has been thwarted. It has been assumed in our place. And so now when we go into these contracts, our goal is to look for that. We're looking for any instance where our interests, where we have given something that is of a seed interest, a principal, a seed investment of principal, any principal amount of value. It could be anything that you see as valuable. Once that gets deposited into the universe or an account, then this is basically where your private governance needs to kick in. You have to be aware of the fact that you have an interest in the things that you put into anything. If you're putting in something, then you should be getting something back out. And this is why I'm here. This is why I'm here, because I want you to get something out of these contracts. So let's go a little bit further into talking about the contract itself. Okay. So I'm glad I gave you a good 20-minute foundation. Um, so going into the contract, when you're looking at the contract at first, the first thing you need to look at is the terms. Okay. Look at the terms. Most contracts will define terms at the very beginning. Some of them will do it at the back end or on the end of the contract, but it's going to be one or the other. You should not see too many definitions occurring in the contract, so to speak, or in the body of it. Sometimes you might see that it just depends on how it's written and what it's for. Sometimes you might see a person say, well, if they're introducing the term in the body of the contract, then you might see a definition following right behind it. But however you see it, it doesn't matter. I want you to make an index of the contents, or excuse me, of the terms. Okay. The terms are extremely important to any contract because it's going to tell you how the words are being defined. And that's one reason why I don't like to split hairs about definitions of words, because definitions of words are relative. Okay. And I'm just going to put it to you like that. A person can interpret a word to mean just about anything they want. So I don't try to keep track of that. I only understand words and use them in my understanding of them in a proper context. So if somebody else wants to define a word and take it out of context, when I enter into that agreement, it's the time for me to negotiate that, because any agreement is a negotiable agreement, because it should be bilateral. It should not be unilateral. So if there are two people in the contract, then two people should be negotiating the terms. So if you have a term there that says this is what this means and you don't agree with that, there's your opportunity. There is your opportunity to change the terms of the contract and then also protect your interests because you have changed the terms. So let's just say you're entering into a contract and somebody tells you that they're going to give you money. And we all operate using FRNs and everything else. But there was a case where a guy wanted to pay with coffee beans. So he took into the judge and paid using a medium of payment that was something how he interpreted it to be money, because there was no definition for it. So he defined it as coffee beans. The man brought in the coffee beans and he paid he paid his court bill with coffee beans. And this is the reason why you want to always make sure that you're being very explicit in the way that you define things, because if I say that money is coffee beans and you say that money looks like a green piece of paper folded up in my wallet, that's on you. I say money is coffee beans, so I'm giving you coffee beans. If we didn't go over that, then I'm well within my rights to do so. So terms and conditions are, I should say terms are the very first thing that you should look for in any contract, because the terms are going to be different no matter what. But then, of course, you have the conditions. Okay. The conditions say that certain things must occur before the terms of the contract are executed validly, or okay, before there's a valid execution or performance on that contract. So your goal is to look at those conditions and make sure that those are conditions that you would like to meet, to make sure that those are conditions that you can meet. Okay, sometimes somebody might say, what if somebody said, I'm going to give you $1 million if okay, you can jump on top of this car in a single bound, you wouldn't want to agree to that, because if they put another condition in there that says, or if they put a term in there that says, if you fail, then you're going to owe me that amount of money, you probably wouldn't want to enter into that contract, because you might not be able to jump on top of that car like that, or you might not be able to jump on top of a building or whatever. So you want to look at that to make sure it's something that you can do, or something that you want to do before you give it up, okay, before you actually go into the contract and agree, because then that's what causes you to default or fall in dishonor if you have agreed to something that you can't execute or perform. Okay, so in that, now we want to talk about what is going to be beneficial to you, because some people will deceive you. And this is the reason why we're here too, because we're entering into these contracts and we don't know that these are terms and conditions that we can't meet, or terms and conditions that we don't want to meet, or terms and conditions that are unjust, or terms and conditions that take away our value without giving us anything back in return. Or sometimes we agree to things unilaterally. We don't negotiate. We'll let somebody hand us a sheet of paper. They haven't even signed it, but we did. Okay, and they will get you on that. If you signed it, you signed it. And this is why we have to be very careful, because it and the commercial code doesn't require two signatures. They don't require a bilateral anything to bind you to it. So you better be careful putting your signature on stuff, because even if it's a unilateral agreement that you have said, I agree, they don't have to agree if you do. You see what I'm saying? You haven't even given them anything to agree to. So you want to analyze the contract and see who is a party to this. Am I the only person here that's agreeing? If I'm the only person here that's agreeing, what y'all gonna do? Where's your performance? Where do I get the value back? Where's my benefit? I'm a beneficiary to these transactions. I'm a beneficiary to my energy, because that's a universal law. Anytime I give something out, I should be getting something back, and it should be valuable, because I don't give out nothing that's not valuable. My thoughts are valuable, so it's intellectual property. I want the interest on that, meaning I want it to return back to me greater and bigger than it was, especially if I'm giving it to you. Okay. My intellectual property is value. My physical labor is value. Okay. The fruits of my womb is value. My agreement has value. Okay. If I tell you that I'm going to pay you back, my word is my bond. That's a value right there. That's a value right there. So look at the contract to see, where is the value first? Where is the exchange occurring? And are you protecting your interests? Some things that you want to look for in your contract. Things, language about volunteerism is not something that you want to get into. You don't want to volunteer for anything, because equity does not support a volunteer, which basically says that if I walk down the street and I give a man, $1,000, okay. And I just gave it to him as a gift. I just donated it, volunteered it to him. There was no agreement. I just said, here you go. There was nothing binding that man to do anything for me. So if I came back later and said, hey, I just gave you $1,000 and you didn't wash my car, or I just gave you $1,000 and you didn't come by my house to mow my grass, that homeless man ain't got no reason to care. That homeless man has no reason to care. You gave him something, you did not attach any terms or conditions to it, and you walked away. That's a volunteer, and the law doesn't care about you when you do that. Okay. And so this is why you have to understand about your unilateral adhesion contracts, because unilateral adhesion contracts basically are volunteerism. You have contracts out here right now today that you have your signature on it, where it says you have volunteered your interest over to a third party. For example, if you purchased a house, you volunteered your security interest to a third party, almost certainly, unless you paid cash. If you got a mortgage to pay your house, you have volunteered your security interest to a third person, and it's supposed to come back to you. If you have gotten a loan for anything, you have volunteered your interest your security interest to another person. It's not coming back to you. Houses, cars, loans. If you are doing like marriage signatures, having babies at the hospital, getting them registered at the hospital, you're handing over property. You're handing over property. Going to register your car at the DMV or whatever, you're handing over value and getting nothing back. You're handing all that value over to the state and they're managing it for you, but they're not giving you anything for it. They're actually taking the stuff that's supposed to be coming to you, which is your interest, and they're keeping it for themselves. Okay, so this is happening by way of your agreement. This is happening by way of your autograph signature. So this is why we have to be very careful to protect our signatures. Always be careful to protect your signatures. So once you have an understanding about what you're protecting, now you want to know how to write, baby. You want to know how to write that contract. Now that you know how to analyze it by looking for your interests. Okay. Make sure you stay with me because I'm giving you this stuff if you're not taking notes. To analyze the contract means that you're looking for your interests. Where's the exchange of value? What are they saying they're going to do with it? Because if you're volunteering it, it's no good. You need to rewrite the terms of that contract. So this is the reason why we're now talking about writing the contract. Writing the contract. Writing the contract is a tedious sport. It is tedious and it can be very time consuming depending on what is going on. So at any point where you're writing out a contract, you must be aware of the matter and the form, or how we say it is the form and the substance. Okay, you want to be aware of what you're protecting. Okay. What are you moving? What are you transferring? What is the contract doing? The contract is doing something. It's allowing you to engage with your environment. Okay. So whenever you agree, just like I said, the contract that you got when you accepted your body, it allows you to interact. It allows you to engage with your environment. The contract is no different. Any other contract, okay, other than your universal law contract, this physical man's law, okay, or the law of the land, the common law, or whatever other form of law that is a derivative. It also allows you to engage with your environment in a certain way. So your goal here is to look at that engagement. How would you like to move? Are you protecting a certain piece of property? Are you transferring property? Are you taking action against someone? Or, what are you doing? Because whatever it is you're doing, your contract wants to be able to, your contract needs to be able to clearly articulate that in a way that the other party is going to be able to understand. And also, if an issue arises, that a third party or some kind of facilitator might be able to understand. If you have some kind of intermediary that's coming in to make a decision on the things that you've written in your contract, you want it to be clear enough so that they understand what to do. And this is the goal of your contract. The goal of your contract is to provide instructions. It is to provide protections for yourself, and it is to outline the parameters of what your co contractor person or whoever is entering into the parties. Okay. It's there to talk about what all other parties must do in order to perform and make that contract valid. So you want to make sure that you're not counter arguing anything in your contract. So making sure that everything is cohesive, that you're not double speaking, saying that one thing is true when another thing is also true, not giving clarity because that can cause dishonor and controversy to arise. These are things we want to avoid. We don't like controversy because we don't like judgment, especially if it's not us doing the complaint. If we're not in the complaint or the plaintiff, I don't want no controversy. I don't want no problems. Okay. So, in our administration and writing these contracts, this is how we have to write out the terms. We have to make sure that our jurisdiction is covered. We have to make sure that we're using proper terminology to represent our private status or our private administration. We want to put things in there that let the other party know that if something happens a certain way, this is how the contract will be executed. Things that will negate the contract, like, for example, if you don't perform, or if there's some level of dissatisfaction with the service or whatever is happening, those things need to be included in the contract so that all parties, whether it be present or future parties, even past parties, past, present, and future, all everything needs to be available for interpretation for those parties. So covering those ideas and covering those terms is really what's going to make the contract valid, binding, and protective. And I think that's one of the biggest things that should be the goal is the protection. of your interest. So if you are going to buy a car, for example, your promissory note or your promise to pay is the value that you are exchanging. So when you sign off on it, there should not be an additional agreement anywhere in there for you to have to repay specific amounts for fees and all of this and all that, kind of like what the FDCPA says. So it's very important to be able to pick out the protections that you want to put in there, and then craft the document around the needs of the situation. You also want to make sure that when you're drafting your contracts that you are proofreading. Sometimes I like to send my contracts to somebody in my network to see what they think about it, to see how they, what do they think? Is it understandable? Like, how is this going to work? How is it going to, how does it come off? And so that's it. You want to define the value, define the terms. You want to make sure that you know how the contract should be functioning, how should it be protecting you, and how should it be interacting with the other person. I typically don't like to do immoral, anything in in my contracts because I don't like to be open for liability. So for some reason, I'm looking at these other companies and I'm like, you guys are really bold to be out here violating people's rights like that without caring. They don't care. So I'll just be like, okay, more power to you, baby. I'm not getting ready to argue with you, but this is not how I want to do my business. I'm not opening myself up for liability for any reason. Because with the work that I'm doing as an investigative researcher, researching government processes, policies, procedures, government regulations, statutes, legislations, codes, and all that other stuff. As an investigative researcher, my job is to regulate, and I'm in an assumed position. But nonetheless, the position is to make sure that through my investigative research that I'm holding entities liable for their violations of not only the natural law, excuse me, not only the man's law, where we talk about legislations and all these artificial laws, but we're talking about universal law. I'm a universal entity and I represent universal intelligence. So when I come on the scene, I'm looking like, I can't believe you guys left yourselves open to this liability like this because baby, I am getting ready to come for judgment. I'm definitely getting ready to come for judgment. There's no way that I'm going to be a person of a higher authority and I'm not going to come for judgment. Y'all know how the Bible goes when it's judgment time. I'm slaying. Do you hear me? I'm slaying because I don't play like that. You're violating it too deeply on some different level stuff. So no, I'm not letting that slide. And like I said, I just can't believe that they would leave themselves open to a problem like me. Yeah, I don't know why they would leave themselves open to a problem like me, but I mean, apparently, I can be a problem or I can be a blessing. Either way, however they want to get it, I'm going to give it to them. But this is something that I want you to be able to do too, because when you go into that car dealership, I don't want you to enter into an adhesion contract and then you need help to get out of it. I help you to get out of it, and then you go get into another one. Okay, so we have to learn these things because your security interests are important. So maybe we'll do another video talking about your security interests. And how to protect them more specifically in your contracts, because this is definitely going to be an education that you have to build on. So, in your contracts, you're going to be looking for the agreement itself, the terms and conditions. You're going to be looking for the value of the substance that you're conveying in that communication, and you want to make sure that you have understood the terms and the conditions of those terms, so that you can perform, making sure that you have protected your interests and making sure that you have not bound yourself to something that you cannot perform on or something that you don't want to perform on. And then once you do that, you're going to write those terms very carefully to make sure that you have not violated anyone else's laws or anyone else's rights according to what you have written. So it's really good to actually write your contracts from the law. Okay, so if you're writing a contract on a specific thing, especially in a particular industry, like let's just say, for example, you're in the banking industry and you want to write out a contract, I would suggest that you go to the banking laws. I would suggest that you go straight to your resources in that banking industry, especially if you're talking about writing policy or things like that into your contract, you want to go directly to the policy and you want to use that to build the terms and conditions of your contract. Okay. So I'm gonna leave it here. We've been on for about 40 minutes, which is good. So my name is Reese Roberts. This is the Spirit of Business that you've been listening to. And I do hope that you go on Patreon for your mentorships subscriptions. We have packages available for people who are really on a beginner level. We have also packages available for people who are more advanced and are looking for strategic mentorship, where we're talking about strategy. On our beginner level, we're not talking about strategy, we're talking about foundational learning. We're talking about things like what we discussed today. So if you are in any one of those groups, you can check out the link www.patreon.com/learn admin law to get access to all of these lectures. And to be able to get direct mentorship from me. That means you'll be able to ask your questions. You'll be able to come directly to me. You'll be able to talk to me and sit down and have an understanding of what you're doing, where you are, the outcomes, the things that you're putting into it. Some of the books, I know y'all see, I love my books. They're all very much a part of my life. So yeah, we'll be able to get you on the straight and narrow when it comes to learning private administration. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. I really do hope that you have a great weekend. Be safe out there. It's kind of wet and rainy here in Atlanta. So we're just going to, kind of be in the house. I'm probably going to cuddle up with my estate and trust administration book this weekend, so I can be prepared for my conversations. But anyway, I appreciate you guys for being here. Peace. Because